Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a pretty fiery critique of the State of the Union address that's been making the rounds online. We're going to break down its core arguments to really understand the claims it's making about partisan protest right inside of Congress. So the source material we're looking at today asks exactly that question. And it does not pull any punches. It levels some really strong accusations about what it claims went down during the president's speech, pretty much turning the whole thing into a major flashpoint for debate. All right, so the source lays out its argument in 5 main parts. It kicks off with the protest itself, then gets into accusations of hypocrisy, a debate over who comes first, citizens or non-citizens, then it presents this grand plan theory and wraps it all up with a big question about who's really being represented. Let's start right at the beginning. Okay, so the whole critique in the source video really ignites from one single powerful observation, the alleged actions of Democratic representatives during the address. It all boils down to who stayed in their seats when others stood up. The entire narrative in this video is built around this one image, right? One side of the aisle is on its feet, applauding, while the other allegedly is sitting down. And this is framed as more than just a disagreement. It's portrayed as a silent protest during moments the source says should be about national unity. And this is where the source gets really specific, moving way beyond just a general claim. It actually lists out individuals and groups who were there, from angel parents to a political prisoner. By doing this, it tries to reframe the protest, not as a political statement, but as a deeply personal snub to victims and heroes. And here it is. This is what the source presents as the absolute climax of the protest. It's framed as a layup, a super simple test of where your allegiance lies. And according to the source, by staying seated, the Democratic Party very, very visibly failed that test. Okay, let's see how this builds, because the source doesn't just stop at criticizing the protest. Nope, it broadens the argument to accuse the party of having a larger pattern of hypocrisy and double standards. And this is exactly how the source tries to land its hypocrisy claim. It puts 2 events side by side. On one hand, you have alleged outrage over one president's snub, and on the other, you have their own members boycotting or protesting another bipartisan event. The source uses this comparison to really question the consistency of their position. So the big question is, why? Why would they do this? Well, the source then tries to explain the motive, and it zeroes in on a really divisive theme. This idea of a fundamental conflict of interest between citizens and non-citizens. Wow, this quote really captures the raw anger that's pulsing through the source material. It's not presented as some nuanced policy debate. It's framed as a clear, shocking choice. The video basically argues that the representatives' actions are a signal, a deliberate preference for non-citizens over the very people who elected them. And to really hammer this point home, the source keeps bringing up the congressional salary. The logic is simple. These officials are on the payroll of American taxpayers. That figure, $174,000, is used over and over to underscore this feeling of betrayal, the idea that they're ignoring the people who pay their salary. The argument then gets even broader, moving from people to policy. The source rattles off a list of policy points, everything from voter ID to tax cuts, that it frames as just common sense, pro-American ideas. And according to the video, these were also met with total silence, which is used as even more evidence of a disconnect with everyday citizens. And this all leads us to the source's biggest, most explosive claim, that these actions aren't just random, disconnected moments of protest. Not at all. Instead, they're presented as just one part of a calculated, long-term political strategy. So, right here, the source basically boils down a pretty complex conspiracy theory into a simple 1-2-3-step plan. It claims the situation at the border isn't a policy failure, it's a deliberate strategy. Step 1, import a new voting bloc. Step 2, grant them citizenship. And Step 3, secure permanent political power. Now, to add another layer to this theory, the video points to the alleged personal wealth of certain members of Congress. It claims this money, supposedly made from things like insider trading, is the motive. It creates a reason for them to protect each other and the system that keeps them in power, no matter what the public actually wants. And finally, the source brings all these different threads together. You've got the protest, the alleged hypocrisy, the grand plan theory, and it uses them to pose one last really challenging question directly to the viewer. This statement right here. This is basically the thesis of the entire source video. It sums up the ultimate accusation, that this isn't just about bad policy or political squabbling. No,
It's a fundamental betrayal of the entire idea of a representative democracy.
And that's the question the source material wants to leave ringing in your ears. It tries to reframe the entire debate away from policy details and turn it into a stark question of loyalty and allegiance. By ending here, it's challenging you, the viewer, to decide for yourself who is really being served.